This is the first of 5 Commander deck videos I'll be making pretty much in a row, so let's get into it. In this video I'll be going over Abzan Armor. It is a Commander deck from the newest set or new set depending on when this is out. There's so much to record that I can't even keep up with it. When it comes to this video I'll be going over the Commander, the Sub-Commander, the best parts of the deck and then giving my thoughts and opinions on it. But before I go into all of that, a word from my sponsor, which is me, my small little Etsy shop where I make t-shirts and hoodies with multiple colours, sizes and designs for people to enjoy. When it comes to this, it helps out the channel, but if you also like to help out the channel and like what I do, please go watch more of my videos, like them, share them to a friend, share them to an enemy if you don't like me but want to annoy them. This will help a lot. So in this deck, Abzan Armor, the commander of the deck is Felothar the Steadfast. For 1 white, black and a green, you get a legendary creature, human warrior that is a mythic. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Creatures you control can attack as though they didn't have defend. And then for 3 and tap it, sacrifice another creature, draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness, then discard cards equal to its power and is a 0/5. So what I'm getting from this is you play big creatures with low toughness that have flash and haste and go crazy. No, wrong commander. So in this, it is you play very buff boys that attack puny, but now can do a lot of damage. And now they can attack with Defender. When it comes to Defender, it's not really a keyword I often see or use. Maybe 1 in every 8 to 12 decks I've seen it in. It's not really a powerful ability, but it's really cool when a Defender deck comes out of the works. Plus the ability to draw cards and discard, especially in these colours, is really good because there is a lot of graveyard recursion and cards that you're able to play from your graveyard, and maybe milling yourself will help a bit. So I see this deck going very powerful in many different ways. Again, great graveyard recursion, great ways to get lands, and then Defender to make sure that you don't get hit, plus then big buff boys. But if that doesn't tickle your fancy, there is a sub-commander, and the sub-commander of this deck is Beatroy Ancestor's Voice. For 2 white, black and a green, you get a legendary creature, Spirit Dragon, that is a mythic. Has flying and lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, put a number of 1/1 counters on up to 1 other target creature you control equal to the amount of life you gain this turn. Return up to 1 target creature card with mana value less than or equal to the amount of life you lost this turn from your graveyard to the battlefield. So when it comes to this, I'm actually making a commander deck with the other Betroth from the set, and to be honest, looking at this, I actually think it'll be a good card to put in that deck as well. It's a weird deck I've made if you want to see it in my Mox field, and I might make a deck tech on it if people are interested. But this commander is quite good in my opinion. Again, it has lifelink, so you're able to boost your life. Probably creatures with lifelink in there or ways to get life, which again, really good. And then if someone does large amounts of damage to you, you're able to then play big creatures or big toughness creatures, which the deck will have due to the commander. So I do think this is a good sub-commander. I do think it's better than 99 unless you change the deck fully, because I think there's going to be a hard focus more on the commander than there is going to be this guy. So let's dive into the deck itself, starting off with creatures. When it comes to this, there is a total of 41 creatures, which is a lot. But you get creatures such like Protector of the Wastes, Ardor Abhorrent, Canopy Gargant, Rampart Architect, Tree of Redemption, Ikushitiki the Usurper, Balden Sentry Herdmaster, Immobilized Ancients, Shalai Voice of Plenty, Wakestone Gargoyle, Wall of Revenants, Welcoming Vampire, Zepelta Primal Dawn, Harasta the Endless Web, Hornet Nest, Seaborn Muse, Sivana Cryptid, Towering Titan, Dragonlord Dracoma, Faebro Elder, Squadrits Silverquill, Sidar Kongor of Jumara, and Weather Centrals. So first, as a dyslexic person, most of those words are going to be probably butchered and I apologize in advance. 2, there is a lot of known creatures that I really like. I'm kind of happy that there's the Strixhaven dragons as well. There's only 2 I think from the top of my head, and I really do like because Strixhaven is one of my favorite sets. Again, highly assumed there's going to be a lot of walls, a little bit of life gain. I do like a good chunk of this deck when it comes to creatures itself. I do think already straight off the bat, without looking at the rest of the deck, that again it's going to be a very creature heavy deck and it's going to be a very powerful one. So let's go right onto spells. When it comes to spells, there's 11 in total, but I do think the sorceries are already going to be better than the instances. But if you know none of the spells in this deck, you get spells just like Reunion of the House, Tip the Scales, Will of the Abzan, Expel the Interlopers, Anguish Unmaking. So a lot of complaints I usually have when it comes to commander decks that a lot of people actually give out about, but not hugely, is the fact that like Swords of Plowshare or the other one is always in a deck with a white pip. There's a handful of cards when it comes to this that if there's a slight hint that it can go in, it's in the deck, and I do think that's fine because usually they are very powerful cards or very well-known cards. My biggest problem is that it's always in the decks. If it's one every like second or third or fifth set, then fine. But the fact that it's in every single one is a bit meh. Second complaint is that the instances are not the best in my opinion. There's a good few sorceries, but again, there's always usually a weaker part of the deck, but again, that's with every deck. So I do think the artifacts and the instances are going to be where it's weaker, and then the lands are always going to be meh to bad. So let's go on to the next one, being enchantments. When it comes to enchantments, there is 3 in total, but only 2 I want to mention, and they are Jaws of Defeat, Assault Formation. Again, not the biggest or most powerful cards. I do think they somewhat suit the deck. I do think they're quite good. I do think enchantments are usually kind of the harder thing to put in when it comes to precons, because they're either really good, really powerful, and really expensive, because enchantments are usually the hardest thing to get rid of, or they're meh, okay kind of cards. So I do think that it's hard to balance in fairness to the people that make these decks. But I do think this is a good selection. I'll probably give it a 6 or a 7 when it comes to picking the enchantments for a deck. Now let's go into artifacts of this deck. There is 7 in total, but 4 of them are mana rocks. So you get other good artifacts just like Kolfina's Urn and Staff of Completion. Not gonna lie, seeing the staff in here was not a weird thing, but I was kind of shocked that it was in here. It's nothing powerful, it's nothing amazing, but I do think that this card is the hardest carry when it comes to the artifacts other than the mana rocks. But I do think it is a good card for this deck, mainly because it's very versatile. If you play the commander, this is quite good. If you play the sub commander, this is quite good. I do think this is a good card to put in this deck. And then finally the lands. When it comes to this deck, there's 38 in total, but you get lands just like Canopy Vista, Fortified Village, Isolated Chapel, Overgrown Farmland, Sunpetal Grove, Twilight Mire, and One Land Cemetery. Lands are kind of becoming the easiest thing to kind of go, they're going to put Scrylands, they're going to put this, like they're the easiest to kind of say they're going to be in all the decks. I do like that recently, in the last year or two, they've been putting in the filter lands. I do think filter lands are, in my opinion, one of the best lands when it comes to organising and filling the deck. But I do think in a 3 or 4 colour deck, you need to have at least 2. But that's just me. If it was a dual colour deck and it just had 1, I would have been perfectly happy with it. But I think with it being a 3 colour deck, I know they have the black green one, but I think having like a white black one or a white green one would have been also a good card to put in as well. But now I got overall thoughts on this deck as a whole. I like the commander. I really like the sub commander. If I was going to build this, I'd be going more of the sub commander way. There's a lot of cards in here that I do like, and a lot of cards here that I haven't seen in previous decks, so I do like that. Mainly the creatures is the best part in my opinion. Again, the rest of the deck is okay-ish, nothing absolutely amazing. So overall, I will give this deck probably a 7.2. But as always, I would like to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, what you thought of this deck. If there's any cards you would put in, or if you're building it in your own little way, let me know in the comments down below. While you're there, remember to like and subscribe and do all that YouTube stuff we always ask for. And as always, if you like this one, I've got 4 more decks to go through, so you've got something to be excited for. But I've got previous Magic the Gathering videos here, a playlist of all the Magic the Gathering videos I do and make here, and a subscribe button here, and I shall see you all in the next video. People are gonna be pissed. Hey, I'm CJ Okorajo, and in this video we are going to be going over the second out of the 5 commander decks from Storms of Tarkir, or Tarkir Dragonstorm, or whatever this set is called. In this one we're going over Jeskai Strikers, which sounds more like a Power Ranger thing to me, but that's just me. In this video I'll be going over the commander, the sub-commander, the context of the deck, and give my thoughts and opinions on all of it to see if this is worth buying or not. But before I go any further, a quick word from our sponsor, which is me and my small little Etsy shop, where I make t-shirts and hoodies and all that good stuff in multiple colours and sizes for people to enjoy. It helps out the channel, and if you like me and what I do and would like to, buy yourself something nice, but also like and subscribe and do all that YouTubey stuff. Now let's get on to the video. Starting off, we're going to be talking about the commander of this deck, and the commander is Shiko and Narset Unified. For 1 blue, red and a white, you get a legendary creature, Human Spirit Dragon, that is a mythic. Has flying and vigilance. Flurry. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, copy that spell if it targets a permanent or player, and you may choose new target for the copy. If you don't copy a spell this way, draw a card, and it's a 4/4. So straight off the bat we know Narset is now not a Planeswalker anymore. Narset is probably one of the most powerful people in Magic the Gathering in my opinion, has had really broken cards, rather Planeswalker and non-Planeswalker variations of them, and to be honest I thought this was going to be a little bit better. 4 mana for 4/4 with 2 keywords is good itself. Playing spells, of course, this is going to be a very spell heavy deck with lots of low cost cards, just even looking at the commander, with very kind of meh enchantments to creatures and artifacts. I do think the ability itself is going to be good and very powerful. This deck has the potential to be very powerful, but without like storm cards or really powerful deck. This deck has been made multiple times, multiple things, they're just making it easier. This kind of reminds me of the dragon, that if you tap it you get to do the same thing. It's more of just an upgraded version of that in my personal opinion. So now that that's done, we'll go straight onto the sub-commander of the deck, and the sub-commander is Eltra Threefold Master. For a blue, red and white, you get a legendary creature, Jin Monk, that is a mythic. Has trample, has paress. Whenever Alicia deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 white monk creature tokens with paress, and it's a 1/1. So I can see the instant and sorcery is going to have some of them very powerful upgrade cards to power up this. I actually think the sub-commander is better in my opinion, because you're still casting the spells, you're not copying them, but you're still casting them, getting their effects. But if you're able to make this unblockable and give it a bunch of +1/+1 counters and double strike, you're able to then get a bunch of 1/1s to then be able to go, cool, they all have paress, so I'm going to draw 3 cards, Swords of Plowshare that thing, I'm going to then brainstorm, and then they're going to be like 4/4/5/5s, and then if you double all the, like give them all double strike and stuff like that. This deck has the ability to be very powerful, be hard, but also hit wide as well, where with Narset it seems to be a very kind of, there's not much blocking and attacking, so you're going to be easy to hit. Pretty much what's going to happen is you're going to play one big massive X red spell potentially, I haven't seen the rest of the deck yet, do a lot of damage to one person, and the other 2 people are going to go, you just did 40 damage with red spells by copying a bunch of them. No. Bye. I do think the Narset one is very like glass cannon, where I do think the sub-commander is very good with the defensive part as well. But now let's get on to the context of the deck, starting off with the creatures. When it comes to the creatures, there is 19 creatures in total, and here are some on screen. You get Transcendent Dragon, Voricus Bibliophile, Calidra Primor, Mangara the Diplomat, Monastery Mentor, Archmage Eminers, Naughty Jin, Lyre, Disciple of the Dawned, Manaform Hellkite, Baral and Keri Zev, Velomachus Lordhold, Veyran Voice of Duality. So I'm gonna say the creatures are good, but in my opinion a lot of these are not creatures. A lot of these are just enchantments that are easy to destroy. A lot of these help with Narset, which is fine, and I do find that playing these is I don't want these to die, I just want them on the field to do my one big turn and hopefully win the game, which again I'm not going out about. I have decks myself. I have a Zaffi deck that the whole point is I do nothing and then in one turn I'm doing 10 damage 50 times plus then Zaffi triggers 10 times and stuff like that. So it is fine, but I do find that this deck is going kind of that similar route where you play these creatures and hopefully nothing really happens to them. You're just mainly focused to keep them on the field, to be able to use their abilities, to be able to then copy more spells or be able to do other stuff like that, or draw the spells you need. So I do find a lot of these to be enchantment cards, which then, because I made a lot of these videos, means the enchantments are going to also be a bit meh, because pretty much, in my opinion, creatures and enchantments are going to be in one category to make it good. So to separate them, to make the deck, both are going to be okay-ish to meh. So that's why I'm going to go straight on to enchantments. When it comes to enchantments, there is a total of 6 in this deck, where I'm only going to be talking about 3, and those 3 are Aligned Heart, Tempest Technique, Whirlwind of Thought. So I think other than spells, which is I'm counting as 1, enchantments are probably going to be the second best section of this deck. I do think artifacts are going to be not the best. Spells are going to be the hardest focus of the deck, of course, which again is kind of weird but also makes sense with the sub-commander. But I say the spells needed for both are very variant, and having both would probably make one side weaker. But I do find that these enchantments, again, as I said, combined with the creature enchantments, make a really good-ish deck already. So now let's go on to the artifacts. When it comes to the artifacts, there is 8 of them in total, 7 of them are mana rock, so I'm just going to read out the last one, and that is Adaptive Training Post. For 2 and a blue, you get an artifact that is a rare. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if this artifact has fewer than 3 charge counters on it, put a charge counter on it. Remove 3 charge counters from this artifact. When you next cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it and you may choose a new target for the copy. So again, this is perfect for the deck. It is really good, but again, I haven't gone through the spells yet. This looks like it's going to be a lot of low cost mana spells to be able to give them counters. Hopefully in some form of proliferate to get more charge counters, but 3 is a lot, especially unless they have Storm in here, so hopefully there is a lot of good and powerful Storm cards. I do think this will be good in a lot of decks that people have as a Storm deck, so if you're ever interested or have built a Storm deck, this card may potentially help you make that deck a little bit stronger. But now let's go on to the spells of this deck. When it comes to this deck, there's a total of 30 spells, of course, and there's a lot of higher cost spells than I originally thought would be in here, and then even the lower cost spells are a bit, in my opinion, but you get spells just like Transforming Flourisher, Narset's Reversal, Sublime Empathy, Electro Dominance, Expansion, Magma Opus, Prismatic Command, Will of the Jeskai, Vanquish the Horde, Dismantling Wave, Ancestral Vision, Beryl's Expensive, Curse of the Swine, Rite of Replication, and Time Wipe. People are going to hate me for this, but I do think this deck has very powerful spells. Very good powerful spells. Very good spells to copy. But also, very bad spells to copy. Very bad cards for this deck. It doesn't make much sense when it comes to Commander and Sub-Commander, especially the Curse of the Swine card. Again, completely fine. They put it in pretty much every deck like this anyway, so it's a very, I'm pretty sure most people that have bought at least 3 or 5 of these type of decks will probably have multiple copies of this card. I know I do. I do find a lot of these are kind of the high cost cards or really broken low cost cards, which again I expected, but I do find it very split. Like, having Electro Dominance makes sense for Narset, not really for the Sub-Commander. Then there is Magma Opus. Again, it was a meh card when even it came out, but it makes sense, kinda with both. I do also find when it comes to this deck, because it's a dragon set, they are heavily relying on Strixhaven cards, because again with some of the creatures, you get the Strixhaven dragons, and then in the previous video I did, you got the Strixhaven dragons in that one, and I've got 3 more decks to go over, and I'm pretty sure there could potentially be more Strixhaven dragons. Now I understand people are going to go, it's a dragon set, of course they're going to be in it, but it's an entire world of Tarkir with loads of different dragons from all different universes. I think having 1 or 2 in is fine, but they're heavily leaning on Strixhaven, I've noticed, when it comes to this set, when it comes to the decks at least. And then finally the lands. When it comes to the lands, there's 37 in total, and when it comes to great lands, you get lands just like Cascade Bluffs, Clifftop Retreat, Glacial Fortress, Prairie Stream, Rugged Prairie, and Sulphur Falls. I do think they have upgraded lands the last year or 2, especially with filter lands. I think filter lands are perfect for these decks. They've now gone to the cost that it's actually worth them putting it in, and I do think filter lands are one of the best lands, especially for the price, in my personal opinion. But again, I do find the lands just, I'd probably say, if there was a scale for the perfect lands for the thing, a 10, I think they're at like an 8. I think they're close to there, but again, just keep putting in maybe 1 or 2 very bad lands, or putting in not too many basics, but kind of cards that not really needed when it comes to certain decks. I think there's like a handful of cards they just go and put in without thinking or looking through. I think when the deck is thought of as a whole, the least amount of thought is put in the lands. So now the big question is should you buy this deck? If you want a good Storm deck as a base, yes. If you like the Commander or Sub-Commander, yes. If there's a load of cards in here you don't have, depending on your budget and how much you have to spend on Magic the Gathering, I recommend yes. If this deck interests you, yes. Is it, in my opinion, so far one of the worst decks I've seen built in the last, I'm going to say, year at least? Yes, this is the deck, even with Narset, and I love Narset, I am not disappointed, but this is probably, if I've done a tier list, the lowest deck, or one of the lowest decks that I've seen them make in a little while, but that's just personally me. I'm not a big fan. I do like it where, even if there is somewhat synergy between the two, it feels like the Commander and Sub-Commander are too far apart. The deck is too far apart, it's hard to go one way or another. The cards do work, but at the same time, I feel like you'll have a load of dead cards in your hand, depending on which one you play. I think to make this even, I say it's playable, but to make it good playable, you'll have to do changes, which personally I would not like to do on a deck I just bought. I like decks that are good playable, not the best, probably one of your weakest decks if you like playing at a higher level, but I'd like playing at least a deck that would stand a chance between your average player that's been playing more than 3 years, we'll say. So again, I do find that there's a lot of bad stuff with this deck, but it still is good deck overall. But personally, I'm going to give it a 5.8, which I know people are going to give out about. When I'm saying this, I'm basing it on the entire deck. I say if you got the Commander or Sub-Commander and made the deck entirely yourself, the potential is really high. Possibly one of the best decks. I do think Narset, especially with the cost and what she does, could make a very, very broken deck if needed to be. But the rest of it pulls her down, my personal opinion. So as always, again, if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments down below what you thought. Let me know what you think of these decks or the set in general. If you build this or have different opinions, let me know in the comments down below and be nice about it. But while you're there, remember to like and subscribe and do all that YouTubey stuff we always ask for. And as always, if you like this video, I have last week's video here, a playlist of all the Is It Worth It stuff I do here, and a subscribe button here, and I shall see you all in the next video. La 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 lava, la 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 chicken. Steve's love a chicken up there. I've got that song stuck in my head. Oh, I need to think of an intro. I'm just gonna use that. It's been stuck in my head for like the last 3 days. So, intro done. Hey everyone, I'm Cordial WCJ. So now we're going to be going over the third deck out of 5 when it comes to the Dragonstorm Tarkir set. To be honest, I've been enjoying making these, but again, they're releasing stuff very fast that it's hard to keep up with. So I've got 2 more and then the set to go over, and the set's already been out. So yeah, that's going to be fun. But before we go any further in the set, I kind of need to do the add little thing that I do. So if you like me and what I do, I have a small little Etsy shop where I make t-shirts and hoodies in different sizes and colours with designs I've decided to make to put on your sexy body that people may enjoy, people may not, but it helps support the channel. Also liking, subscribing and doing all that other stuff helps too. So again, if you want to help me and support my channel grow, please buy yourself something nice and all that other good stuff. So when it comes to this video, I will be going over the commander, the sub-commanders, the best parts of the deck, give my thoughts and feelings on each part, and then an overall kind of, is this deck worth buying or not? This video is more to help people decide what's in the deck and also to see if they're willing to buy it or not, if it's on the cusp. Plus it's also a good conversational piece for people that have bought the deck or have their own opinions on the deck too. So let's get into the video by talking about the commander of the deck, and the commander is Kotris Sigseed Champion. For a black, green and a blue, you get a legendary creature zombie warrior that is a mythic. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a creature spell from your graveyard by exiling 3 other cards from your graveyard in addition to paying its other costs. Whenever one or more creatures you control enter, if one or more of those creatures entered from your graveyard or was cast from your graveyard, put 2/1 counters on Kotris, and is a 3/3. To be honest, this is kind of already good in my opinion straight off the bat, because again, you sacrifice something, we'll say like discard a 10 cost card, then you play like 3 little creatures that you don't really care for, you attack, they die, then you get rid of those 3, let's say 1 mana, 2 mana creatures, and then you're able to get the big massive 9-10 cost card from your graveyard to the battlefield. I also think it's good because it just says creatures, it doesn't say, no, it says creature spells, so tokens don't count. Because I think the ones that like there's like the 3-headed, it's like horse tyrant thingy that when it dies it splits off into 3, and then there's the Phyrexian version that becomes 3/3/3s. They would have been good, but no, it's creature spells, so sadly that doesn't work there. Plus, whenever you do reanimate or bring something back from your graveyard, your commander gets a little buff. So to be honest, I do like this because you can play a load of cheap cost creatures, discard big creatures, put equipment on your commander, make him unblockable with the blues part of him. Especially since the colours are really good for reanimating, really good for kind of landfall, land cards, growing your land base and stuff like that, and then blue for really cool powerful spells of making things unblockable or stuff like that, and then drawing to be able to make your hand bigger and stuff like that to put hands in your graveyard. I do think this is a good commander with lots of different potential. So now with that, let's go on to the sub-commander, and the sub-commander is Tevel the Balanced Scale. For 1 black, green and a blue, you get a legendary creature spirit dragon that is a mythic, has flying. Whenever Tevel attacks, mill 3 cards. Then you may return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Whenever 1 or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token and is a 4/4. Not gonna lie, I actually prefer this. 4 mana for 4/4 with flying, in my opinion, is really good. When it attacks, I would prefer if this was a May trigger, but you get to mill 3 of your cards, and then you get a landfall trigger, which again is really good because if you play a card, then also attack, you mill 3, get a land. I think good lands like Fabled Passage and stuff like that would be great. My problem with this so far is the way I would build it is completely different from the deck itself, and I find it even more further away from the commander. Plus, I really do like that whenever you get to bring something back, it doesn't have to even be a creature. You get a token that is good for a blocker or an attacker. I do think, in my personal opinion, and I actually would probably build this deck, I would really like this, but I would be hard focusing on putting as many cards in the graveyard as I possibly can, and then playing cards that let you play lands from the graveyard, that have landfall triggers and that let you play multiple lands on a turn. So like Explore, or I can never remember her name, but she's a creature that lets you play 2 additional lands on your turn. And then I would fill this with maybe 40-45 lands, have unique lands that can turn into creatures and stuff, and weird stuff like that. That's how I would build it. To be honest, I really like the Sub Commander. I actually think, my opinion so far, it is the best kind of commander, Sub Commander that they've made when it comes to these decks. I would actually probably build a deck, so if you're interested in that, let me know and I'll do a deck take on how I would personally build it. Let's dive in right into the creatures. When it comes to this, there is a total of 37 creatures, and to be honest, I was kind of shocked what was in here, but you get great creatures just like Diviner of Mist, Floral Evoker, Steward of the Harvest, Colossal Grave Reaver, Gravecrawler, Ampin Mutineer, River Kelpie, Truthy Whelm Walker, Disciple of Bolas, Jundi the Midnight Sky, Lord of the Forsaken, Necropolis Fiend, Noxious Scarehulk, Omnixilus the Fallen, Tazgra the Golden Fang, Woe Strider, Avenger of Zendikar, Multani Yavimaya Avatar, Shigeki Jukai Visionary, Consuming Apparition, Jared Golgari Lichlord, Lord of Execution, Merrin of Kalneth Toth. So when it comes to this, I did think from the start the creatures are going to be the best. I also then think the sorceries are going to be next, or the instants and sorceries, the spells of the deck is going to be the second best. I do really like a lot of the cards in this. I would actually probably buy the deck for a lot of these cards. I always want Avenger of Zendikar. I do think it's a very powerful card. There's also a lot of cards in here I do find powerful. My only kind of problem, it's not even really a problem, is the Sub Commander seems more of a landfall deck, and I do think there's a fair few cards that would be really good with him, but won't be as good with the Sub Commander. I do think there's a lot of powerful creatures that cost a lot of mana, so again, ramp would probably definitely be needed and stuff like that. And I do think exiling 3 cards to play some of these are not really worth it in my opinion, especially if there is a low amount of low cost creatures to then get rid of to play the bigger ones with the commander. But now let's go on to the spells. When it comes to this, there is a total of 19 spells, but you get great spells just like Afterlife from the Loam, Welcome the Dead, Will of the Sultai, Life from the Loam, Casualties of War, Living Death, Necromantic Selection, and Lethal Scheme. So as I thought, the sorceries was going to be the more powerful stuff, more than the instances. I do think some of the instances are quite good, but again, the hard focus is on the sorceries. I do like a lot of these cards and actually want to get my hands on 1 or 2 of the cards from this deck. I do think that the powerful kind of spells are belonging in this deck. I do really think that there's a lot of good cards for them to pick, and they did do quite well, especially because the other cards I can think of are more heavily priced for them to put in a deck like this. But next up is enchantments. When it comes to enchantments, there's 3 in total, so I'm just going to read out all 3, and they are Tevil's Judgment, Phyrexian Reclamation, Crawling Sensation. So when it comes to these decks, not everything's going to be perfect, not everything's going to be overpowered, and I am happy when it comes to this. And usually with making all these videos, I know where from the commander and sub commander where the hard focus is going to be and where all the good spells are. So having 3 enchantments is where I thought it was going to be. To be honest, I thought they would probably throw in a Phyrexian Arena because they've been doing that a lot, but they didn't. The card selection is good. I really do love the Judgment card. I actually am putting it in one of the new decks I'm building. I did think the enchantments are good for what both the commander and sub-commander are looking for. I did think there would probably be a little bit more power, but I was more thinking maybe 2 rares and then an uncommon and uncommon, but that's just me. I think they toned it down a little bit more than I originally thought, but again, that's completely fine. Now on to what I personally will think is the weakest part of the deck, and I personally think I am correct. The artifacts. When it comes to this, there is 4 in total, with 2 of them being mana rocks, but the other 2 are Conduit of Worlds, Essence Anchor. Not gonna lie, the World card I absolutely love. I think the World card is an amazing card for this deck. The other one is okay. I can see where they're going for. It's quite good in this, But to be honest, I do think with the landfall deck, I think there is the amulet, I can't remember what it's called, but things entered untapped instead of tapped. I think there's the turtle, but I don't think it's the colours for this. That's the creature. I do think there's one or two other cards that also let things enter untapped. I think throwing that in, I don't know the price of the amulet, so maybe that's the reason it's not in. But I actually thought the amulet would go in, mainly because there's going to be a lot of lands either way you play the commander or sub-commander. So having a fair few powerful lands, especially with the amount of ramp they put in here, only putting in the classic Sol Ring and Arcane Signet, where usually they put in 3 or 4 other cards, but they didn't this time. So I found it to be putting kind of all the mana rocks squished down in the amulet would have been, in my opinion, a better idea, mainly because putting in a lot of tap lands that enter the 3 color lands, anything that is when you have to bounce a land back, you get 2 colors that also enters tapped. I think something like that is really good for this type of deck, and plus when it comes to this, the lands are usually a bit weaker, so having that amulet in would have been a really good card, but they didn't put it in, so it must be rather a very expensive card or people don't like it. Again, we'll have to see. Then finally, the lands. When it comes to this, there is 37 lands in total, which again, I think is a little bit less, but I think they always kind of hard focus on 37-ish lands and won't go much higher or much lower. So that's kind of their baseline, but you get lands just like Commander Beacon, Crypt of Agadeem, Dreamroot Cascade, Dawnyard Temple, Hitterland Harbour, Sunken Hollow, Woodland Cemetery, Temple of Melody. So if you've watched any of my videos before, you know I always kind of give out when it comes to the lands. They are doing better. I do think filter lands are really good and really cheap and should be pretty much in all of these if they have 2 or 3 colours or more. I do think when it comes to this, they took out the best lands, so like the filter lands and stuff like that, to put in the cards that have unique abilities, where in my opinion, both are really cheap. I think most filter lands are like a 5-ish. So again, I think having both in are great, taking out some of the really bad lands to make this a good land base for people to kind of push forward and for new players to kind of understand the lands better and be able to play better. But it seems to be, in my opinion, they should have both, but they're either picking filter lands or lands with abilities, not really both. I do think Crypt of Agadeem is a really good land for this deck, especially since you're planning on milling. So again, that is really good. So they probably replaced that and took out the filter lands. I do think for this deck, 2 filter lands would go really well, but again, that's just me. Now my overall thoughts and opinions of this deck. To be honest, it is my favourite deck out of the 3 videos I've made so far. I do think the sub-commander is better in my opinion, but it's more of a how I play compared to others. I would probably make a deck, I'm not going to, but if people are interested, I would make a Moxfield version of it and then talk about, do a deck tech video on that if people are interested. I do think a lot of good cards are in here, mainly in the creature and spell department. I was kind of shocked to see the artifacts only having 2 mana rocks, and then the enchantments and lands are what I would have guessed when it comes to this type of product. I think overall I would give this an 8.8 out of 10. I do think it is really good for your purchase, especially if you are a newer player. I think this is a good deck to teach people how graveyards are also a resource. A lot of new players kind of, like a few months in, eventually learn it, but straight off the bat going, cool, hand is the main focus. I do think this is a very friendly beginner deck and also a really good deck for veteran players. But there are my thoughts and opinions on this deck. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, and while you're there, to like and subscribe and do all that YouTubey stuff we always ask for and beg for and annoy you with. I also want to thank everyone because since recording this I have got 2k subscribers, so again, thank you for all your support so far. I'm really enjoying this, so I'd love to make this kind of my full-time thing. But if you like me and what I do and would like to help and support the channel and all of that, remember, like, subscribe, follow and watch more of my content. But as always, I have the previous deck here, a playlist of all the Is It Worth It deck stuff here, and a subscribe button here, and I shall see you all in the next video. Oh, there actually is one Planeswalker. That's... Hey everyone, I'm Korojo or WeCJ, and in this video we are going to be going over the 4 Dragonstorm Tarkir deck called Mardu Surge. This is a clearly Mardu deck, and I do find Mardu to be kind of one of the hardest decks to actually make good and resolve. So in this video I'll be going over the commander, the sub-commander, the context of the decks, and my thoughts and opinions in it all to answer the question, is it worth it? But before I go any further, a quick word from my sponsor. I know he's really annoying, which is me and my small little Etsy shop where I make t-shirts and hoodies in multiple colours and multiple designs and sizes for people to enjoy. I really do like making them, and it really does help out the channel. But also, if you like me and what I do, you can help out the channel by liking and subscribing to all that other YouTuber stuff. So if you like what I do, buy yourself something nice. So let's start this off with the wonderful and amazing commander, and he is Zergo Stormrenderer. For a red, white and a black, you get a legendary creature Orc Warrior that is a mythic. Has Mobilize 1. Whenever a creature token you control leaves the battlefield, draw a card if it was attacking, otherwise each opponent loses 1 life, and is a 3/3. I like this commander. I really like cheap commander cost-wise that have really good ability. So whenever this attacks, it gets a 1/1 attacking red warrior as well, which also then triggers its kind of second ability, which pretty much just means since it's attacking, you get to draw a card. So whenever this creature attacks, you get to draw a card if this creature lives, which is really cool. +3 mana for a 3/3 is really good. Now, there's many things you can do with this, and I think the deck will probably end up having bits and pieces of it, where it's 1, adding keywords to this commander, giving it vigilance, giving it lifelink, giving it death touch, giving it double strike, first strike, and all that is really good. Powering it up with other things is also a really good thing for that thing to kind of happen as well. Second thing is pretty much damage doublers. There's red, so you're able to play red sources do like 2 more damage. Then again, red sources do double or triple damage as well. So that 1 damage to each opponent kind of then becomes 3 and 5, and then it keeps growing from there. Plus with white and black in it, you're able to get many tokens like angels, warriors, zombies and stuff like that, which if they're not attacking, you're then able to sacrifice them. Plus there's also stuff in the deck that if it hits your graveyard, you're able to do extra damage too. So this is what I like about this commander. You can hard focus on doubling, tripling its damage, you can hard focus on the draw, you can hard focus on making a large army of tokens and sacrificing them, or just making a large amount of tokens in general. This commander is really good because there's multiple ways to play it, or you can have it a little bit of all, which again is amazing. But now with that, we have the sub-commander, and the sub-commander is Neverie Crackling Vanguard. For 2 red, white and a black, you get a legendary creature Spirit Dragon that is a mythic. Has flying and death touch. When Nerev enters, create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. Whenever Nerev attacks, exile a number of cards from the top of your library equal to the number of different named tokens you control. During any turn you attack with a commander, you may play those cards, and is a 4/4. So not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest fan of this. I do think 5 mana for 4/4 with Flying Death Touch is good. I really do like the ability that when it ETBs, you're able to get 2 goblins, especially since there's white in it. There's a lot of flicker as well, so you're able to flicker this commander over and over again. It's its last ability. I'm not the biggest fan when it comes to red spells, exiling cards and being able to play them later on. I do think that since it says commander, you can have this in the 99 in most of your decks if that's what you're aiming for, because it says commander other than this card, which is good. But again, I think having kind of your hand and then your exile hand, I'll call it, is very annoying separating it, especially since there needs to be a lot of ramp. Now, building this deck with the commander and sub-commander in mind, trying to have it that it's good for all kind of the abilities seems very difficult, because when I see this, I'm like, you need to add in kind of, again, more flicker, more probably attacks each turn, so like the cards that say have an extra combat, and then kind of cards that you exile cards from the top of your library and then play them later on. So having this and then the different play styles of the commander, I find it's going to be a hard focus, and there's going to be a lot of random cards, because Just looking, I haven't looked through the deck yet, but I say there's probably going to be like a Path of Exile or Swords to Plowshare or something like that, and then cards like that they throw in majority of these decks. So I say with the low card count and the many cards needed to make the Commander good or the Sub Commander good, and the different ways to play both, the rest of the deck is going to be kind of hard to focus on anything, so it's going to be kind of generically good stuff everywhere and not in a good way in my opinion. But first, let's talk about the Planeswalker. In this deck, you actually get a Planeswalker, and if you don't know who the Planeswalker is, it is Kaya Jest Hunter. For 1 white and a black, you get a legendary Planeswalker Kaya that is a mythic. Starts on 3 loyalty. +1, creatures you control gain Death Touch until end of turn. Put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 target creature token you control. -2, until end of turn, if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many tokens would be created instead. -6, exile all cards from your graveyard, then create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying for each card exiled this way. Not gonna lie, usually there is a hit and miss when it comes to the cards they pick when it comes to the Planeswalkers, and I'm not actually complaining about this, but it did also make me think, for both the Commander and the Sub Commander, having token doublers in there too. Mainly when I think of token doublers, I think of green, that's why I didn't think of it. So having a Planeswalker that doubles your tokens is really good, especially with the Sub Commander, because you get 4 instead of 2. But then kind of +1ing it to power up one of your little tokens if you're planning on going that army token is okay, but it'll be easier for them to just kill Kaya. I do like this card for this deck. I do think it is good for both the Commander and the Sub Commander, so hopefully they kind of go along that track with the rest of this deck. So talking about the rest of the deck, let's go on to the creatures of this deck. When it comes to this, there is 32 in total, but you get creatures just like Anok Strike Leader, Ironwool Forger, Bone Devourer, Goldlust Triad, Redoubled Storm Singer, Adeline Replacement Caither, Angel of Invention, Emerald Angel, Hero of Bladehold, Selfless Spirit, Sun Titan, Twilight Drover, Chittering Witch, Gix Yogmoth Praetor, Mindblade Render, Onfunmancer, Yehenni Undying Partisan, Grenzo Havoc Razor, Legion Warboss, Orc Battle Driver, Siege Gang Commander, Maya Battlesphere, and Solemn Simulacrum. So looking at the creatures, my fears have literally been told. Second I seen this, I forgot to say earlier on, they always put in a Swords to Plowshare or the other white exile card, and then they always put in a Sun Titan. Whenever there is a kind of white kind of deck, they always throw in Sun Titan. Sun Titan is in way too many of these decks. To be honest, I think actually Grave Titan would have been the better version here, and they didn't have that in here. There is a lot of cards, and that's what my fear is. There's a lot of good cards in here, but they're all over the place in my personal opinion. It seems to be they just get, like, if they're going to make a token deck, they're going to put in a bunch of like Mirror Battlesphere and anything that makes tokens, and then if they're making a Goblin deck, they're going to put in Siege Gang Commander and other like other cards that make goblins, and then there's also the other cards that like it seems to be a bit all over the place. It feels like I'm kind of reading 2 or 3 of the decks that they usually build when it comes to this list. There is a fair few cards that I was kind of shocked and being like, that's actually kind of cool, or I like that. There was majority of cards going, yeah, I could have guessed it's in here. Yeah, it's in all the decks. Whenever there's a red pip with goblins, they're going to throw this card in and a Sun Titan here, and like there seems to be probably like a kind of generic list they use that they throw in every single one of these decks. So again, it's kind of like not feeling new. It feels like they've just gotten 2 decks that they've made previously and smashed them together, in my personal opinion so far. But let's go on to spells. When it comes to spells, there's 13 in total, but you get spells just like Will of the Mardu, Grand Crescendo, Hour of Reckoning, Eliminate the Competition, Tempt with Vengeance. I'm liking these will cards. These will cards, in my opinion, are really cool. The rest of the cards are just kind of like, oh yeah, cool, like fine. There's like no big complaints. It's nothing like amazing. I do think Hour of Reckoning is, I've seen it a lot, but it's kind of one of those cards that I just fly past. So I'm like, Where do I keep seeing this card? It might be in their list of, if there's a white pip, here's the board wipe they pick. I know there is some really cool ones that like let you board wipe, gain a bit of life, and make a bunch of tokens. I'm like, why isn't that in there? I do think when it comes to this, the spells are okay. Again, nothing like amazing, nothing fancy, nothing like outstandingly good or anything like that. It just seems to be, other than the will card, just seems to be the generic cards they put in. There might have been one or two else that are just generically good for this deck, so we'll just have to see. So let's go on to the enchantments next. When it comes to enchantments, there is 6 in total, but you get cool enchantments just like Within Range, Commander's Insignia, Divine Visitation, Legion Loyalty, Tocasia's Welcome. So far, I think this is the best section of the deck. Myriad, I didn't even think of. It is such a powerful ability, especially for a bunch of the cards in the deck. I do think, and I understand why, I think commanders should get like away with Myriad, but there's going to be some commanders that will be absolutely broken with it. I do like Divine Visitation. I do think it's a very powerful card, but I think the mana cost of it is the downside. I do think it is such a powerful and good card. I've just never been able to make it work for me. So now let's go on to the artifacts of the deck. When it comes to the artifacts, there is 11 in total, 6 of them being mana rocks, which clearly seems needed in my opinion with the amount of big spells and kind of how much mana you need for this type of deck. But you get other artifacts just like Infantry Shield, Blade of Selves, Idol of Oblivion. So Blade of Selves and the Shield are good in my opinion. I do like Blade of Selves for a lot of the cards in this deck, and I do think the Shield is a good thing for the deck. Idol of Oblivion is literally just that card that seems to be in all of these type of decks. When it comes to this, it's like, it makes a token, it lets you draw a card, bing bam boom, done. This with the Kaya Planeswalker, if you -2 her, would be kind of funny in my opinion. But again, it's one of those cards I've seen, and I know like so many people having like 3 to 6 to 8 of them. There is kind of easy to get your hand on this card. So then finally, the lands. When it comes to lands, it's usually the biggest complaint I have when it comes to these type of decks. So let's go through them. In this deck, you get 37 lands, but you get lands just like Castle Ardenvale, Castle Embereth, Clifftop Retreat, Dragon School Summit, Fetid Heath, Isolated Chapel, Shattered Sanctum, Smoldering Marsh, Vault of the Archangel, and Windrisk Heights. This, in my opinion, is good. So usually they do a lot worse, and when I say I want them to do better, it's usually not much better. They usually have cards that go well, or lands that go well with the deck, because they'll tap for mana, but also do something the deck needs. This does that. Then they will have a filter land. Realistically, what I'm kind of been asking for is kind of whatever deck they build, add a filter land if it's 2 colours. If it's 3 colours, add 2 filter lands. I think that would make this thing perfect. The land base isn't that bad, but as a new deck and how filter lands are super cheap now, I do think putting cards that work well with the deck, which they've done in this one, they didn't do it in one of the decks, and then also add in, depending on how many colours, 1 or 2 filter lands. It seems to be, in my personal opinion, it is always close. So it's like 90%, of my opinion, worth it through the lands. Adding in that 1 or 2 lands would make it like really good. So when I say I want them to do better in the lands, I don't mean like put in really expensive, crazy old lands. Just 1 or 2 cards that work well with the deck, and then 1 or 2 filter lands. Other than that, the rest is fine, in my personal opinion. So now my thoughts on this deck as a whole. As I said at the start, I find the commander is absolutely amazing, got multiple ways to play. The sub commander is fun in my opinion, not my type of playstyle, but people that do will enjoy that. However, it seems to be 3, 4, 5 playstyles with the commander, and then 2, 3, 4 with the sub commander as well. And then the deck seems to kind of go, we don't know who to make happy. We don't know if we want to do this ability or that ability, so they kind of just threw in a bunch of cards that do a little bit of everything that's bad, and then they threw in the list. The list of cards that they put in majority of these decks, like the Arcane Signet, the Sol Ring, and then the Swords Plowshare, and then the Sun Titans, and then the Idol of Oblivion and stuff like that. There just seems to be a generic, if you don't know what to put in the deck, throw one of these in. So that's what this deck feels like to me. I do think, realistically, if anyone actually bought the Commander, could make a really powerful deck, especially with throwing in like Anger in there to get haste, or a few different ways to get haste, adding extra attacks, token doublers. Like, the Commander can go really far really fast, plus putting stuff in your graveyard, reanimating it, and then making sure that if anything hits your graveyard, they lose life, and people taking 2 or 3 damage and losing life. And since there's a White Pit, throw in a Teferi's Protection. They won't do it in the actual deck if anyone wants to own this on their own. I do find the Commander to be the biggest push on this. I do think this is possibly one of the most powerful Commanders they could have built in the last little while, but it seems to be you would have to put money in it to make it really good. If anyone actually makes a good deck when it comes to this, link me your Mox Field or whatever you build it on down below, because I would love to see this as a deck. The rest of the deck, in my opinion, is where it all plummets. Again, it seems to be they had multiple ideas, multiple threads, and they just got lost. Overall, I would probably give this, it's not bad, there's a lot of cool stuff in it. I do think the Commander, the Sub-Commander is giving it the biggest push, but overall I'm giving it a 6.2 in my personal opinion. But as always, let me know what you think of the deck, what cards you would love to see in it, what cards would you take out, how would you build it, and all that other stuff down in the comments down below. While you're there, remember to like and sub and comment and watch more of my videos. And if you like this one, I have the previous deck here, a playlist of all the Is It Worth It Magic the Gathering stuff I do here, and a subscribe button here, and I shall see you all in the next video. Temu. Rawr. Imagine that for the entire video. Temu. Rawr. Temu. Rawr. No, okay, that's my intro. Go on. Hey everyone, I'm Kojo, or CJ, and in this video we are going over Temu. Rawr. Sorry, the last time I'm doing it. I'll be going over the Commander, the Sub-Commander, and the context of the deck to answer, is this deck worth buying or not? But before I go any further, a word from our sponsors, which is me and my small little Etsy store, where I make t-shirts and hoodies in multiple colours and designs for people to enjoy, and they're very comfortable and nice. So if you like me and what I do, first, like, subscribe, and do all that other stuff. Secondly, buy yourself something nice, and it helps support the channel. So, getting right into the deck, this is a 3-colour deck, again, green, blue, and red. Really cool colours, but I will say, before I even talk about any of this, I have an Animar deck. It's one of my favourite decks. If people want to see a deck on it, let me know. But I will probably be looking at this deck more in the point of view of, is there any good upgrades for that deck? So there'll be maybe a few comments going, oh, this is good for like my Animar deck and stuff like that. So again, I am going to be focusing on, is this worth it and all of that. Sorry, just the Son of God decided to come on me. But I will be focusing on the deck itself and the context of the deck to see if it is worth it or not. But there will be a few comments here or there talking about my Animar deck. So let's get on to the deck. Starting off with the Commander of the deck, and the Commander of the deck is Eshki Temu's Raw. For a green, blue, and a red, you get a legendary creature, Human Warrior, that is a mythic. Whenever you cast a creature spell, put a 1/1 counter on Eshki. If that spell's power is 4 or greater, draw a card. If that spell's power is 6 or greater, Eshki deals damage equal to Eshki's power to each opponent and is a 2/2. I love this commander. I love commanders that are like low cost but still get stronger and stronger each like turn. Again, protection would be a big thing in my opinion for this. A 3-color commander that's a 2/2 is really good. Then you just need to play something that is a 4. So again, your early game will be mainly ramp, and then you power it up. Probably put a few little things that, like I say, this in Hardened Scales would be absolutely great. Powering her up and then doing large amounts of damage. Giving her lifelink is hilarious in my opinion. I actually think I might make this as a deck, mainly because the thought of going, cool, let me think, I'm going to tap 2 green to play Ghalta, and my Eskies will even say a 4/4, like even not powered up that much. So that's 4 damage to you, and you. So that is 4. Yeah, no, it's... So yeah, 4 damage, 8, 12. That's 12 damage to those 3, and I gain 12 life. That is hilarious in my opinion. I do really like this as a commander because it has a cheap cost. It also has a really cool ability that powers up. I actually say this could be a potential threat with the amount of 1/1 counters you can get and the ways you can move 1/1 counters around. This and the Obsolith, the thing that lets, if a creature dies with 1/1 counters, you put all the 1/1 counters onto this artifact, then you're able to spread them out. Putting this and Forsaken Agent in, really good card for this deck. So a lot of 1/1 counters, a lot of big powerful creatures, a lot of like easier ways to cheap stuff out. This and Omniscience will be hilarious. Draw, so you constantly have a good hand. The blue Elder Dinosaur would be great in this as well. I'm pretty sure that's higher than a 6/6 as well. I could be wrong. I think it might be a 5/5 or something like that. I do think a lot of draw, a lot of 1/1 counters, and a lot of like really cool cards, like even putting in Omniscience, the cards that do double red, anything that is red, double red damage, triple red damage, and stuff like that. So her damage is even doubled and tripled. I actually might really make this a deck of my own. So if you're interested in this and a comparison of the deck that is made and the deck that I make combined, let me know in the comments down below. This would also be really good in Animar in my opinion. So with that kind of love letter, I didn't think it would be that long. Let's go on to the sub commander, and the sub commander is Ureni of the Unwritten. For 4 green, blue, and a red, you get a legendary creature, Spirit Dragon, that is a mythic. Has flying and trample. Whenever Ureni enters or attacks, look at the top 8 cards of your library. You may put a dragon creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, and it's a 7/7. In my opinion, I'm going to take a little pause here not to talk about the commander so far, or the sub-command so far. I really like the commander. I think it's one of my favourite commanders they've made potentially in a while. I really do like this card. The sub-commander though has made me shift this deck a lot. This focuses a lot on dragons. It is a good card. 7 mana for a 7/7 with 2 keywords, and you're able to play dragons on the field for free is a really good ability, especially if you play like the cat that lets you flicker and have a bunch of ramp to get this out early and stuff like that. It is a really good card. However, the way I really like this is with the commander, but I really do think that because of the sub commander, they're going to build the deck a lot more focused on that. Yes, a dragon deck is good with a sub or with the commander. However, I think the way I would have liked the deck is with a bunch of 1/1 counters, a bunch of damage doublers, a bunch of draw. I think now more it's going to be kind of like that, but with mainly dragon focus, which is going to shift the deck a lot more on the sub commander. So I'm not kind of really excited. I might just buy the commander itself and build the deck my own way, but I do think this sub commander still has a lot of potential. I do think it is a lot of mana, but you get a kind of a free dragon. You do have to hard focus on the dragons to make this work, and I think that's what they're going to do. So then let's go on to the full context of the deck now, starting off with the creatures. When it comes to this deck, there is a total of 35 creatures, which makes sense with the commander and sub-commander both being creature focused heavy, but you get cards just like Deceptive Frostkite, Hammerhead Tyrant, Parapent Thrasher, Thundermane Dragon, Broodcaller Surge, Kegia the Tidestar, Atsushi the Blazing Sky, Dragon Master Outcast, Gadrug the Crone Surge, Glorybringer, Hellkite Courser, Lathis Dragon Queen, Leyline Tyrant, Nesting Dragon, Nogi Dragon Zealot, Opportunist Dragon, Surge of the Throne, Scared Hellkite, Stormbreath Dragon, Torrent Mauler, Territorial Hellkite, Thunderbreak Regent, Vengeful Ancestor, Verix Bladewing, Atarka World Renderer, Dragonlord Atarka, Hardbringer of the Haunt, Sarkhan Soul Aflame, and Steel Hellkite. So my fears did really come true. This more seems to be a hard focus on the sub-commander, which again isn't bad, I just prefer the commander. With the commander, it does have that thing that you can build it in many different ways. You can make it OP with like even full elves or dragons and stuff like that. So I understand why they're hard focusing on the sub-commander. I just see that it's kind of too hard focus on it. It's pretty much made the commander not obsolete, it's still playable, but this seems to be a very, very hard dragon focused deck, which I know is going to sound weird in a dragon set. But you're getting a lot of cards that everyone kind of has. They're reprinting the Dragonlord when it comes to the Secret Lair. You can get them in the sets. Like, there's a lot of dragons here that just seem to be getting a lot of reprints, which again, dragon set makes sense. But also throwing it in the deck as well makes it not really wanting to buy it. I know a lot of people have spare Steel Hellkites, Atarka World Renderer, the Leyline Tyrant, Lathis Dragon Queen. So there is a lot of dragons I've seen a lot of people have lots of spares of. So again, if you're looking to buy this deck, you can kind of build half of it just from friend groups or your local LGS, because it seems to be a lot of dragons they use over and over and over again, where even though there is a few dragons that are brand new that they could have used or newish in the last 2-3 years. When it comes to being a brand new player though, if you have no dragons, this is great if you're a fan of dragons. So if you play D&D and love dragons and stuff like that, and you're brand new to Magic, even just buying it to have these is a really great card, or a really great deck. I also think the early game of this is going to be a bit weak, depending on how many mana rocks and how good the lands are. So I think this is quite an okay, good mid to late deck. So now let's go into the spells of the deck. When it comes to spells, there's 15 in total, but the ones you gotta look out for are Will of the Temur, Sense Festival, Become the Avalanche, Blasphemous Act, Storm's Wrath, Sylvanni Stampede, Chaos Warp, Spitflame. Not really where I would go with the spells. The damage spells are quite okay. There's a few draw as well, but I do have to focus on Become the Avalanche is such a good card. It's pretty much like a Great Behemoth, but a lot cost more effective. I do really like this card. I do think that card will be good in many decks, especially a lot of Simic draw. Even if you're playing it with tokens and stuff, I do think that is a card that people should kind of grab their hands on. I do think it is a very good card. The Blasphemous Act, again, is in all decks that pretty much have red. There's a lot of damage stuff. When it comes to sorceries, I think more, there is a few sorceries that give like +1/+1 counters and stuff like that. I do think, I can never remember the name, but it was in the War of the Spark and has the ability to give you like 4 choices. Something with Civilization, you can get a bunch of 2/2 like people, but there's also an option where you can get a bunch of 1/1 counters on something, and you get to pick like 3-4 times. There's a thing that's like target creature gets +3/+3, and it says it like 3 times. So again, I do think that would be really good. So again, there's a few spells that I would personally put in, but again, I would put it in mainly for the commander. A lot of these are just damage and draw spells that are generically good. Now let's go on to the enchantments. When it comes to enchantments, there is 7 in total, but only 3 I want to talk about, and they are Reflections of Littjara, 4-tier Siege, Temur Ascendancy. These are okay. I love the Temur Ascendancy card. The other cards are just kind of okay to good. Again, the way I would build it is completely different, so when looking at this, I'm kind of like, yeah, no, that's fair. It just seems to be kind of, I like more hard focusing on the commander and sub-commander. These are just generically good cards, except for the Temur Ascendancy. But again, given all this stuff, Haste is quite a good card in general. I think, and I could be getting the colours wrong here, there is, I think it might be blue, red, white, so that's probably why they don't have it in. But there is the one with Narset, it's an enchantment, and it's like you get to draw a card or something. It's in one of the other decks, I think, so yeah, that makes sense. So I do think that the enchantments are probably going to be, the enchantments and artifacts are probably going to be the possibly weakest part of this deck. But talking about artifacts, let's go on to them. When it comes to artifacts, this is my first time doing this. There's 6 in total, but they are all mana rocks, so there's no point really going over them because even the mana rocks are just generically good mana rocks. There will be a deck list online and stuff if people want to see, but there's not much for me to talk about when it comes to the artifacts. So let's go straight on to the lands. When it comes to this, there's 37 lands in total, but you get lands just like Cinderglade, Flooded Grove, Heaven of the Spirit Dragon, Hinterland Harbour, Kessig Wolf Run, Mossword Bridge, Rockfall Vale, Rootbound Crag, and Sulphur Falls. This has been my opinion on all these decks so far. They are, in my opinion, 95% good. Since most of the decks are 2 and 3 colours, I do think putting a second filter land in would make this like great for wearing and cost effectively for the decks that they are making. They've just made it that slightly bit worse. They're kind of not focusing that the game keeps getting stronger and stronger each year. They're kind of maybe half a year to a year behind, in my personal opinion. If you are upping the price, upping the stuff like that, up the cards, putting 2 filter lands in is really good and would possibly be one of those things that people will buy it. Or more people will buy it because it's usually the lands that people give out about when it comes to these decks the most. And I think that fix is 1 or 2 filter lands. I do think when it comes to the rest of the lands, really good cards that work well with the deck. Now my thoughts and opinions on the entire deck as a whole. I love the Commander. They could have done so much when it comes to the Commander. They could have added in so many good cards, so many stuff like this. However, they kind of faded it a little bit off. Again, if you're playing a dragon that lets you play other dragons for free, there is cards that work well in both. There's the red damage doublers and triplers that work well in both. Your dragons that have the red pips doing double and triple damage, great. If you change your sub-commander to the commander of your deck, that doing double and triple damage, great. Omniscience in the deck works great for both. Playing creatures to get +1/+1 counters, playing more dragons for free, great card. Also enchantments that whenever you deal damage you get to draw a card, works well on both. I do think there was a few cards that they just solely had focused on the sub-commander because anything really works with the commander. The creatures are pretty much all dragons, the enchantments and artifacts are meh. The sorceries are mainly just weird in my opinion, a lot of damage which makes sense, but it's mainly to just board wipe and slow the people down. A lot of damage and stuff like that. But I'm not the biggest fan of majority of them cards. I think it is a hard push for the commander, but I think when it comes to new players, I do think it is a good deck for new players, especially dragon lovers. So I actually give this maybe a 7.2 overall. And they are my thoughts and opinions. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comments down below. If you want to see me do an Animar deck tech, let me know in the comments down below. And if you want me to see me build the commander and compare the deck to this deck, let me know in the comments down below. While you're there, remember to like and subscribe and do all that other YouTubey stuff we always beg and ask you for. And as always, if you like this video, I have last week's video here, a playlist of all the other videos I do here, and a subscribe button here, and I shall see you all in the next video.